What began as a conflict over the transfer of consciousness from flesh to machine escalated into a war which has decimated 1,000,000 worlds. The core and the arm have all but exhausted the resources of a galaxy in their struggle for domination. Both sides, now crippled beyond repair, the remnants of their armies continue to battle on ravaged planets, their hatred fueled by over 4,000 years of total war. This is a fight to the death. For each side, the only acceptable outcome is the complete elimination of the other. Hello viewers, and welcome to Total Annihilation. Okay, so Total Annihilation, or TA for short, as I will inevitably end up calling it, is a real-time strategy game, and it was released in 2007 from Cavedog Entertainment, and it came from the mind of Chris Taylor, who you might recognise from Gas-Powered Games, but I'll go into him a little bit later on. So, as I said, TA is a RTS, and it takes place on various different planets, and it has a wide array of sort of terrains you can fight on. There are a few major changes from something like Command & Conquer. Firstly, TA was the first RTS game to actually feature full 3D units and terrain, which marks kind of a difference between CNC or even StarCraft, which actually came out afterwards, that used sprites and kind of calculation to define height variation. It also does something slightly strange, which it tracks all the projectiles. Instead of assessing whether or not one unit can shoot another and then just allowing that to happen, it allows you to... Well, the game tracks, the engine tracks all the projectiles that have been fired. And, for example, if you shoot a unit and then something comes in between you and the target, that shot will then be blocked. So these two kind of decisions, going with full 3D environment and tracking shots, really allows for some interesting gameplay and a bit more realism than you expect from an older RTS. So one of the other big changes is that instead of having a structure from which you construct buildings and then construct units, TA flips that kind of on its head. Instead you have a commander unit which has the ability to construct buildings. You start off by building an economy, so you build some resource-generating buildings, then you build your construction, sort of unit construction buildings, like a vehicle plant or something, and then you can start producing tanks and scout units, or robots, or planes, or whatever, and also other construction units to increase the size of your base, to improve your economy, to construct more everything, really. So, the commander unit he's fairly powerful. He's not sort of invulnerable. He's pretty armoured, he has pretty high health, and he builds relatively quickly. But ultimately he is quite weak. He's not really a combat unit. He can kind of hold his own early on in the game, but later on he's pretty weak, so you have to defend him. And once you've got your resources set up, which are... there are two resources there. There is metal, and energy. And you use metal extractors to pull metal out of the ground, and you use various different kinds of energy production, whether it's solar or wind or tidal. You can also build fusion power plants later on, which is that's the highest tier energy generation you can get. So the game kind of comes with tech levels. There's no research as you would find in something like Civilization, or even something like Supreme Commander 2. Instead, you have the prerequisite buildings. So to get to the second tier tech stuff, you need to build the prerequisite tier 1 stuff. So if you want to have tech 2 vehicles, you need to have a tech 1 vehicle plant, which you can then produce a tech 1 construction vehicle, which has the ability to build tech 2 structures, or certain tech 2 structures, which includes a advanced vehicle plant, from which you can build a advanced construction vehicle who can build yet more stuff. So one of the other major features of TA was the modding community. So unlike a lot of the other games out at the time, especially RTSs that use a lot of sprites, because TA used 3D models, it was a lot easier to produce units, extra units and the like for TA, and a huge community grew up around modding the game. Not only extra units, but extra maps and total conversions, because the game made it so easy to make smaller modifications. The engine, which was a custom-built engine by John Mather, who now works at Uber Entertainment, but I will mention them later. Yeah, it was a custom engine, and it really did allow the community to grow around modding. The TA community, in fact, was really very big and very strong, and to a certain degree still goes on today, as does modding. More to the end of total conversions than just the odd extra unit. So I feel like I owe quite a lot to TA. It was one of the first games that I kind of played a lot of, especially online. It kind of introduced me to the concept of having online communities. And I still have a lot of the same friends, sort of 10, maybe even 12 years later. We hang out on IRC, we play games together, and in reality, they're probably some of my longest lasting friends. So I kind of, owe TA. I feel like I owe TA a bit of respect. It's certainly a very fun game. The campaigns, of which there are several more of in the 2 expansion packs, the Core Contingency and Battle Tactics. The plot isn't great. The plot is pretty much non-existent, but the scenarios that they put you through are pretty good. They are enjoyable. They have lots of variance, and they have lots of kind of control over the tech levels and what you have access to, so that you don't suddenly get dumped with a bunch of information, a bunch of units that you don't know what to do with. So if you like the look of TA, I would definitely encourage you to have a go. It's on Good Old Games for not a vast amount of money. I think it's about $6 or something. And yeah, I would definitely give it a go if you like the look of it. If the graphics are a little bit too old for you, or if you have trouble running it, or if you just fancy something a little bit more developed than TA, a little bit further from 1997, there are 3 sort of spiritual successors. The first one is Supreme Commander, which was released in 2007 by Gas Powered Games, again from the mind of Chris Taylor. Now, this is a slightly more direct translation than other attempts. There is quite a lot of micromanagement, which does put quite a few people off. Micromanagement wasn't really in the original TA, but it does have the non-research based kind of prerequisite building tech tree compared to the other game from Chris Taylor and Gas Powered Games, which is Supreme Commander 2, which makes massive changes to the way the systems work, and it really doesn't feel like TA anymore. It feels like a different game. It still has the sort of scale that TA and Supreme Commander had, but it has not really the same sort of gameplay. The other major one that's worth taking a look at is Planetary Annihilation, which was began developing, I think it was 2012, 2013. They ran a Kickstarter to start developing a game called Planetary Annihilation, which was in very similar veins to TA, and it was very successful, mainly because there are a lot of ex-Cavedog, ex-Gas-Powered Games, so people who worked on the original TA and Supreme Commander, working at Uber. So it does look like the game's going to be pretty good. It's out on Gamma now, I think, instead of Beta or Alpha or Beta. It's a very strange game. It feels a lot like TA, but kind of the environment which we're playing on is slightly different, so it's slightly weird. It's probably the closest direct, up-to-date TA experience that you're going to have, but I would still kind of encourage people to go back and play the original TA since it works. It does work on Windows 7. I was playing the same install I think I've had for the past 7 years on Windows 7. I'll copy it through various machines, and it still all works. It's still all good and works, and has quite a high range of screen resolution, so it's pretty playable these days. So yeah, I would encourage you to go play it. It is, as I say, probably one of my favourite games of all time. It won 60 awards back in the day, and yeah, I would definitely give it a go. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.